Hey guys, I hope all is well. Thank you for joining me for this Truth Talk episode. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about YNW Melly. Let's get right into it. The YNW Melly trial has been going on for the last couple weeks, and so much information has been revealed during the trial. What happened on that night is becoming more and more obvious, and the evidence is painting a clear picture of what happened to the young victims. To many at this point, it's appearing like YNW Melly is guilty, and it's hard to deny. Like I said in the last video I made, to me, it's obvious Melly is guilty of these crimes. We spoke about his music video for his song Murder on My Mind, and how the music video foreshadowed Melly's eventual ritual offering. Knowing what I know about the use of occult symbolism, I knew this video was connected to what happened that night. Many people believe that because this song was released before Melly's two friends were taken out, that it proves this song is not connected. The thing is, with the amount of occult symbolism in the music video, it clearly tells the story of what happened. Melly ritually offered his two close friends for several reasons. One of the main reasons is greed and manipulation. Listening to the evidence presented at the trial, and also spending a good amount of time researching into Melly, I believe I have an idea of what might have happened that night. On October 26, 2018, YNW Melly and a few of his friends were at the studio into the late hours of the night. At the studio session, Melly was accompanied by YNW Sack Chaser, YNW Juvie, and YNW Portland, alongside a few other friends. According to the evidence revealed during the trial, at some point, Melly's friends were starting to fall asleep at the studio, so around 3 a.m., they all decided to leave the studio. Surveillance footage shows the group leaving the studio entrance and making their way to two separate vehicles. YNW Melly, Portland, Sack Chaser, and Juvie all walked towards a red SUV, with YNW Portland getting in the driver's seat, Sack Chaser in the passenger seat, Melly sat behind the driver, and Juvie sat behind the passenger. The car then drove off into the night. Shortly after the drive began, chaos erupted. Now, from the evidence the prosecutor presented, this is what I believe happened that night. While in the vehicle, Melly waited for his two friends to fall asleep. When they fell asleep, Melly pulled out his piece and pointed it towards Sack Chaser, letting go at him, taking him out. Then Melly quickly turned the piece onto Juvie, who had woken up due to the loud bang, and Melly then let go at Juvie as well. According to the prosecutor, Juvie had defensive wounds on his hands from when he lifted his hands to either fight back or plead for his life. According to evidence at this point, Melly and Portland began to stage the scene to make it look like a drive-by. They parked the car at a chosen location and began to spray it up to make it appear like they were in a drive-by. After this, Melly and Portland split ways, with the prosecutors claiming that Melly stood on the side of the road, allegedly texting fellow rapper Fredo Bang, asking to be picked up. At the same time, Portland was making his way to the hospital with the bodies. Hospital surveillance footage then shows Portland arriving at the hospital in the same red SUV they all left the studio in. And it also shows Portland running out of the car, running into the hospital, then quickly running out. In my opinion, the prosecution presented plenty of evidence that should prove Melly was at the very least lying about his involvement in all of this. See, the prosecution presented phone GPS location data, proving that Melly's phone was in the same area of the vehicle. They also showed the footage of Melly getting into the red SUV, which would put him in the car. They also revealed that the bullet trajectory evidence showed the incident all happened from within the vehicle. They also showed evidence proving that the victims were already gone by the time Melly and Portland staged the drive-by. While all of this evidence seems to paint Melly as the obvious suspect, what I believe the prosecutors have been failing at is identifying the motive. See, the prosecution hasn't presented a believable motive for why YNW Melly wanted to take out his two close friends. According to the prosecution, Melly did this to further his ranking in a gang, but that's not what I believe. In my opinion, I believe Melly was trying to further his career and up his wealth. YNW Melly is an obvious occultist. Just with the symbolism found in the Murder on My Mind music video, you can see that Melly was involved in the occult. There's many reasons why I believe this was a ritual sacrifice, starting with the time and date this all happened. According to the authorities, YNW Sack Chaser and Juvie were last seen at 3:20 a.m. This means this entire incident happened during the 3 a.m. hour. We already know 3 a.m. is the witching hour, an important hour for occultists. Occultists believe during the witching hour, they're more connected to the spiritual realm. On top of this situation happened in the month of October. October is again associated with the occult, not only because of Samhain, but because of the fall. During this month, the pagans would make sacrifices to the god of death in hopes of being blessed with a good harvest. This is exactly what I believe Melly did. He allegedly took out his 2 close friends around 3 a.m. in the morning in the month of October, all pointing to a ritual offering. Then the very next year, Melly is collaborating with Kanye West. What's even crazier is that after Melly was named as a suspect, his song and music video about taking out one of his friends took off to a whole new level. I believe this entire situation was Melly being initiated. Melly had to make a ritual offering in order to be initiated, and that's exactly what he did. I believe there's several reasons why Melly chose to take out Sack Chaser. One reason is that it appears Sack Chaser had beef with YNW Melly's mother and was allegedly threatening her. 2. Melly and Sack Chaser had a fight a couple days before the situation where Sack Chaser knocked out Melly's golds out of his mouth in front of Melly's girlfriend. Just think about it. Melly was embarrassed by this man in front of his girlfriend, which possibly made him a target. But I believe the main reason Melly wanted him out of the way was because of money, and lots of it. See, Melly didn't create the YNW brand. YNW Sack Chaser actually started the brand, and Melly was a part of his crew. It appears that Sack Chaser had Melly in contracts and also owned either part of the YNW brand or all of it. This is where I believe Mr. Officer Francois gets involved. In my last video, I spoke about how YNW Juvie's father believes a 100K track, otherwise known as Jameson Francois, was involved in all this mess. He believed the 100K track was who allegedly persuaded Melly to do all of it.
Why do you think that this happened? Why do you think, Melly did this? Because, Melly is on trial. The state has to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt that he committed these crimes. But why do you think this happened?
I think the story about the 200,000 with Anthony was a true story. It's not reported, but Chris told me the same story, and also with a $500,000 play. And Melly was going to get 200,000, Sack was going to get 200,000, Chris was going to get 100,000. And as I'm hearing it from Chris, it was going to sell the YNW brand, not a record deal or nothing like that. It was like for the brand itself. By them being founding members, they would get a piece of the pie. So I don't think Melly did it on his own. I think that manager guy got in his ear. And did a little divide and conquer. Because if it was up to Sack, it would never be a 100K management.
They were going to sell the YNW name for licensing or sell products? Or what do you mean they were going to sell the name?
For marketing, licensing, stuff like that. I think they want to go up on the big umbrella just to push them, push the brand more global. That's what I'm thinking.
And so you think that Melly wanted a bigger cut of that then? Was there any sign of bad blood for your sons? Was there any tension there that you knew of?
Not with Juvie, not with Chris. You heard things about him and Anthony getting into altercations about disputes about money over certain situations, and they got in a fight prior to that, and they said, the story that they said Sack beat him up and knocked his goals out in front of his girlfriend. 2 days later, I think that's when the incident happened.
This makes so much sense to me. Jameson Francois would have had the most to gain from all of this happening. This exact quote was even stated by YNW Melly's lawyer.
Jameson Francois with the missing. He's the manager who had, I think, $16 million in his account. If anyone had a motive, in this case, it would be Jameson Francois, possibly.
See, according to YNW Juvie's dad, Sack Chaser didn't get along with 100K track and actually seemed to be in disagreement with him when it came to the business side of things. Since Melly was contractually obligated with Sack Chaser, 100K track needed his approval for anything relating Melly. During 2018, Melly was going up and opportunities were being presented to Melly worth millions that would have had been split with Sack Chaser as well. And depending on how much percentage Sack Chaser had over Melly, that could have been millions of dollars. It was revealed during the trial that 100K track had a business account for his artist with over $16 million in it. If Sack Chaser was still here, he would have been owed a percentage of what Melly had made and was continuing to make until the contract was over. This is why I believe Melly chose Sack Chaser, and I believe Juvie was either on Sack Chaser's side or just at the wrong place at the wrong time. Now, with Sack Chaser out of the picture, no one can stand in the way of 100K track getting what he wants from Melly. It's clear to me Melly chose to ritually offer his two close friends because he had millions to gain from it. This is why after his friends passed, Melly was able to secure a feature with one of the biggest Masonic puppets in the industry. This also explains why even though the defense doesn't have a solid explanation for all of this, Melly still wasn't found guilty. The defense wants the world to believe that sometime during this drive, before everything went down, Melly stopped on the side of the road and jumped in a different vehicle. According to this witness the defense called on, he testifies that he remembers when the car he was in pulled over to let YNW Melly in that night. Even though the witness didn't state this when they were interviewed originally, he is now claiming that Melly was picked up before everything happened and that he wasn't in that red SUV. When the witness was asked where did they pick YNW Melly up at, he responded by saying he doesn't remember. The defense was also trying to convince the world that Melly wasn't the one using his phone that day. They claimed that Melly's phone was a part of a family plan and that for whatever reason, Melly and all his friends would swap phones routinely. This made zero sense to me and just made them appear more guilty. Now, it was recently revealed that even though the evidence was clear-cut, somehow the jury couldn't come up with a decision, so the trial ended in a deadlock leading to a mistrial. This doesn't mean Melly would be free, but it does mean that Melly for whatever reason wasn't found guilty. At this point, it is obvious YNW Melly took the oath and is being protected. With the amount of evidence presented, it's not possible to believe that Melly wasn't guilty. Melly was smiling in court with a sinister grin the whole time. He was expecting this. Like I said before, I wouldn't be surprised if Melly is found innocent, and I believe this mistrial is a setup for this to happen. This mistrial is going to lead to a second trial where chances are Melly would be found innocent. He is likely going to walk free and be received by hip-hop fans as a hero, even though he offered up his two close friends for fame and fortune. There should have been no reason a decision couldn't have been made. This proves this is all a part of the show. Well, that's it for this one. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.